Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow. A reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. Reading rainbow.
Now, don't touch that dial, faithful listeners. You may have heard something a little different right as we got started here, but I promise you, this is indeed Arthur related. Welcome, everybody, to another special edition of Elwood City Limits. We're presenting another special episode for you today. And, well, if you're a 90s kid, or even if you're a little bit older, you may recognize that theme tune. Even if you've never seen an episode, you probably know the name Reading Rainbow, and that's what we're here to talk about today. My name's Will Young, and this is a very special episode that, yes, I promise, is Arthur related, but I wanted to use it as an opportunity to welcome another guest to the show. You may know her from the Let's Talk Cartoons blog over on Tumblr. Please welcome, everybody, Anna Mansager.
Hi, Will. How are you?
Did I get that right? I know I just wrote it down, but I wanted to make sure. I'm very particular about pronunciation with myself.
Yep, that's right. Good for you.
Awesome. All right. So Anna, thank you for joining me here on the show. You've been supporting the podcast for a little while, and I want to thank you for that. And I did get the chance to read your blog recently. I love your reviews over on Let's Talk Cartoons. So tell me, what is your kind of experience with Arthur?
Oh my god. Well, I was born in '89, so I'm a born and bred '90s kid. And I didn't have cable, so it was PBS all the way for me. And Arthur was like by far head and shoulders above like everything else on that channel. I just loved Arthur so much. I watched it all through elementary school and then like even into middle school a little bit. Yeah, it was like a huge part of my childhood.
Awesome. Now, I mean, that's interesting. I almost would have guessed you were a little bit younger, but you and I were practically the same age. So you probably know all about Reading Rainbow, especially if you were a public television kid growing up.
For sure. And I actually, it's funny, I haven't revisited Reading Rainbow since I was a kid, and when I started watching the episode, I almost started crying, like when I saw the butterfly going and the theme song started. I was like, oh my god, Reading Rainbow, yay!
There is a very potent nostalgia to the Reading Rainbow theme song, and we'll get into it in just a second here. So, and Anna, I'm guessing that I in fact I didn't ask you. Are you from the States?
Yes, I've actually lived in a couple of states. I was mostly raised in Connecticut and Colorado, and a couple months ago I moved to California. So, but yep, I'm an American.
Very good. I'm looking outside right now, and I'm seeing that it is snowing, so I'm not sure if that's a regular occurrence over in California.
No, not at all.
For me, as a Canadian kid, when I say public television, for me it was the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and PBS too. But yeah, if you grew up on PBS, I just figured I'd take a stab in the dark there. Well, Anna, I'm going to need your expertise, and I'll rely on my own as well as we go through this episode of Reading Rainbow that I just kind of came upon randomly because there's actually an Arthur episode, and this is Reading Rainbow episode from the very first season. It's episode 13, way back in 1983, and it's the episode titled Arthur's Eyes. So Anna, for people who don't know what Reading Rainbow is, we have some kids these days who are growing up without a Reading Rainbow. How would you describe this television show?
It's funny you ask that because when I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, like, how did the pitch for this TV show even happen? Where it's like, okay, so we're gonna take books and we're gonna read to kids on TV, and basically that's it. We might have a couple other segments that are a little bit related to each of the books, but it's basically like all about the books.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit of a little bit quaint these days because, I mean, not to say that reading has necessarily gone out of style. It's a big part of people's lives, especially young kids. But I'm sure that the presentation would be way different considering that this is over 30 years old at this point, this episode. It was a blast from the past is kind of selling it short. This is from before even I was born. So it's very, very vintage, and I imagine it may not feel the same way to kids today as it did to perhaps you and I back then. Reading Rainbow is a bit of an odd duck, but very happy to be talking about it. There's a lot of love for it on the internet these days, a lot of nostalgia. As we kind of mentioned there, it all kind of starts with that amazing theme song.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow.
Oh, yes. And I think LeVar Burton was my first celebrity crush from that show, too.
Oh, really? Okay, see, that's a good one because I wrote down a couple of times like LeVar Burton in this episode. Now, for those of you who don't know, LeVar Burton, actor, you or your parents may know him from Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was Geordi LaForge. That's one of his most popular roles, and he's just kind of a generally good guy. And, of course, most popular for Reading Rainbow, too. He was also in a couple of episodes of Community, if you've seen that. But, yeah, 1983 LeVar Burton, he's a good-looking dude. That's a good celebrity crush to have.
Yeah, he's got that good, mustache, his little, poofy hair that was so popular in the late 80s, early 90s. His little, turtleneck.
He's got, the Lando Calrissian mustache. It's real cool looking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was trying to think who he looked like. You were right. He looks like Lando.
And then there's a moment here in the episode where he kind of puts glasses on, and he's like, I actually wear glasses, but sometimes I wear contact lenses. I'm like, keep the glasses on, LeVar. You're just he's a good looking dude. I don't mind telling you.
I know. Actually, at that part, I was like, you're a dirty liar. You never wear glasses. You always have either the contacts or I guess when he's Geordi, he has the visor thing.
That's right. Maybe that was how he kind of informed that role, having to wear glasses all his life. Now, of course, glasses big part of this episode. Now, I just want to, before we get into the Arthur of it all, I just want to take a little time here and talk about this particular episode of Reading Rainbow. You can check this out. I found it on YouTube myself. And I think the big takeaway that I have from it is that it's interesting in almost like a time capsule sense. Like we were talking about, there's no analog that we have today that is like the Reading Rainbow of today. And going back and, explaining, we used to just read books on the air. You said it yourself, and it's very it's almost hard to describe. It's very much unlike anything that's on TV today.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's very slowly paced as well. I don't know if anybody would really let that fly today. If
you wanted to be like, oh, hey kids, check out this show I used to watch when I was a kid, I feel like some kids might be kind of bored by it. Like you said, it's very slow moving and kind of works at its own pace, and it even covers some topics that are heavier than I expected. So throughout an episode of Reading Rainbow, they cover several books, not just the one in the title, and one of them actually had to do with the topic of race, of skin color, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, we're really going into this. And it's 1983, so we keep thinking sometimes that introducing this kind of subject matter into kids shows is something that we've just started doing. No, we've been doing this for a long time, and Reading Rainbow is proof.
Yeah, the tonal shifts in this episode were really strange to me. Because he goes, when he's talking about how he has glasses, he goes, I went to the eye doctor and I had a full eye exam and I was tested for color blindness, which means like maybe you can't see red or green colors. It's not that serious, but there's another kind of color blindness. It's like, oh my god.
I'm so glad that you got that, because there was like this wicked segue of like, it was the kind of, it was like a stunt driver doing a big 180, and just like it worked, but whoa, buddy, it was out of control. But he really got it in there. Sorry, I keep distracting myself. We need to talk about that opening theme song.
Yes, it's amazing. Although I was talking the other day to somebody about how much synth music there was in like the early 90s, late 80s kids shows, and it's just like, oh my god. Just the opening sort of like keyboard pan flute thing seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, it's instantly iconic, and it took me a long time to actually figure out like what instrument that was, and like I just figured it was, I don't know, the power of reading itself made manifest. And it's a very uplifting theme song. Just I can do anything, I can go anywhere. We were kind of talking about the ways, and this is a throwback. This is back when, of course, and I think this is still true, that children's literacy very important, and I hope that it remains important, because on Elwood City Limits, we cover the fact that Arthur many times is an advocate for local libraries and for reading. This was very much nakedly so, a show that was all about getting kids to read and trying to make it seem as accessible as possible, and appealing to like the sense of adventure and wonder. And it was kind of nice to see, because I feel like maybe books don't get that treatment anymore. There's a lot less mystery around them.
For sure, yeah. And they even do like the thing at the end there where they have the kids tell you, what books they liked that might have to do with this segment, and that you can find those at the library too.
Yes, and now if you've never seen an episode of Reading Rainbow in your life, you may have come across this segment in one way or another. There's a segment at the end of every Reading Rainbow episode, so they go through several books, and then LeVar Burton hands it off to kids who were probably filmed at a local PBS affiliate, and they kind of give their reviews of a book that they read recently. They're on camera, and there's a couple of shots from the book, and so he introduces them by saying, "But you don't have to take my word for it," and they all have the musical sting that I'll play right here. Dun-dun-dun. So I feel like that one has made its way around the internet, that even if you've never seen Reading Rainbow, you've heard dun-dun-dun.
For some reason, this segment used to really make me angry as a kid.
Really?
I used to get really offended at the fact they were telling me what to do. I'd be like, don't tell me what books to read. I'll read whatever I want Reading Rainbow.
Okay, fair enough. I see, I was a very taciturn young child, so I was like, okay, I've got to read these books, but I never thought about it the other way.
I don't know why I was like that, but for some reason it made me like irrationally angry.
I feel like maybe you weren't the only one. Some kids really don't like being told what to do, so I guess I understand that, but I can't exactly relate to it myself. A couple more things that I just want to touch on from Reading Rainbow itself before we get into Arthur's Eyes. There were some I'll say interesting segments that LeVar Burton found himself into, and these episodes really kind of have a journey. It's like watching a Simpsons episode where it starts with one thing and then goes into another thing. It goes from talking about race to kids making their own stop motion films.
Yeah, it's really like all the segments are kind of connected by perception, I guess, like how you see things, how others see things, how we perceive the world. And the stop motion kids, like, I was super jealous of them. They had like these awesome cameras like hooked up to like stands, and they were like pulling chains to do the little segments that one at a time. That seemed like an awesome library program. I want to go there.
For sure. I would have loved to try and make stop motion films. And these are young kids, and they did a pretty decent job of it all.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the one girl who did the ballerina one. I like that one.
There was also a strange segment involving mimes for some reason.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on there. And what's really funny is LeVar Burton says, you can see what's going on using your eyes instead of your ears. And then they have mimes doing things, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I can see what's going on, but I still don't know what's going on.
Right. I feel like mimes are a little bit maybe on the intimidating side for kids. I don't think there's a whole lot of charm in mimes, especially these days. I feel like a mime's a hard sell in 2017.
And then he ends up in a really scary toy store.
Yeah. What was that about?
The music is so scary. Like, it sounds like Lost in Space or something.
It's like, and there's like giant versions of everything. So it's like the perception is he's really playing with the perception. You're right. He also, I wanted to highlight this quote because of course it's a very positive show. It's aimed at younger kids, obviously, but I appreciate, I always like a show that is at the forefront, not sarcastic but sincere. And at the end, LeVar Burton had a great quote. He said, "The things around you aren't nearly as important as how you see yourself." And it was all about self-perception and understanding the fact that, you're like being okay with yourself is one of the most powerful things in the world. And that really spoke to me as an adult. That's something I have trouble remembering myself sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a really good message for pretty much everyone, not just kids and adults. And it definitely kind of adheres to the same sort of messages that Arthur, tries to get across as well.
Anna, was there anything else that you wanted to note from the Reading Rainbow segment before we get into Arthur?
Well, before we get into Arthur, I have a quick Reading Rainbow story from my childhood.
Sweet. I'd love to hear it.
I always wanted to be a writer as a kid, and now I'm breaking into writing, so there you go. But I was a huge Reading Rainbow fan, and when I was about 6 or 7, I wrote a book, and by book I mean I folded pieces of paper together, stapled them, and then wrote a story and drew the pictures. And for some reason I had in my head that if I sent it to Reading Rainbow, they would read it on the air like they did with Arthur's Eyes and the other books on this segment. So I mailed it to them. And obviously they didn't, but they sent me a certificate back with LeVar Burton's signature and was like, just keep writing.
Well, that was a good try. I have to admire your enterprise as a young kid. You at least you shot for the heavens and maybe hit a star by getting a reply from Reading Rainbow.
Yeah,
So,
and it really encouraged me, honestly. I kept writing and all through my grade school years, and now here I am in Los Angeles breaking into TV writing, so there you go.
Congratulations, that's awesome. Now I don't want to jinx it or anything, but have you written for any TV shows yet?
Not yet, no. I'm hoping to get into animation writing, honestly. So you never know.
Hey, you might end up on the Arthur writing team.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Oh man, if you do, let me be the first to interview you, please.
Okay.
Speaking of Arthur, so let's get into it. If you want to get to the Arthur of it all, if you're, watching this Reading Rainbow and but when Arthur, Arthur's Eyes, the kind of dramatic reading of it starts 5 minutes in, and it goes to about minute 11. This is kind of presented in almost like a motion comic kind of way. That's kind of what I figure is the closest facsimile we have to this right now. Is it's a motion comic. There's not it's just kind of going from page to page as the narrator reads it out, but it's with a little bit more attention going from, when you're reading a book, the picture's all there and the words are all there. This time you don't see the words, and it kind of goes from picture to picture as it's involved with the story. So it's a nice way to kind of TV-ify the reading of a book.
Yeah, and they add a bit of background noise as well.
Okay, so this blew me away. I was looking this up of just okay, so this episode aired in 1983. When was Arthur's Eyes published? Turns out the first Arthur book was published in 1976. I had no idea Arthur was this old of a concept.
Yeah, it actually said that at the end credits of the Reading Rainbow episode as well, and that blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe it's this old.
Yeah, so the first Arthur book, which is Arthur's Nose, was in 1976. Arthur's Eyes was published in 1979. So, kids, to give you an idea of this, Arthur as an idea, as a character, has existed longer than Star Wars.
Oh my god.
The first Star Wars was released in 1977, and Arthur has it beat by 1 year. And technically, this book that we're reading is older than The Empire Strikes Back. So, hey, I guess there must be something to this Arthur thing if it's 40 years later and still going strong.
Yeah, there's definitely something that people have definitely latched on to. I wonder if Mark Hamill is a Arthur fan.
Oh, well, I would love to know. Speaking of latching onto things, I'll tell you what I personally didn't latch onto, and I think a lot of people didn't, is the original design for Arthur himself. So you often, I've seen this, kind of comparative, just like how Arthur looks now to how he used to, and he used to look very much like an actual aardvark. His nose is a lot longer than you might expect. In fact, this one looks like they're starting to figure it out. This is the second Arthur book. But in the first one, man, he looks way different. It almost looks like when you go back to the first season of The Simpsons and see how rough everything used to look. What did you think of Arthur's original look, Anna?
Yeah, he definitely looks a lot more like an actual aardvark this time. His nose is longer. He looks like, to me, he looks like terrified all the time. Like, his eyes have these like huge circles under them. I don't know what that's about, but he definitely has a much longer nose, and his family, it looks a lot more like regular aardvarks as well. So they all have it looks like their faces have been kind of like stretched a little bit.
The illustration style is, of course, a lot different than the animation style of the TV show. Sorry, I should have looked this up. I just want to see. Do you happen to remember who illustrated the Arthur books? Was that Mark Brown as well?
Yeah, Mark Brown.
Okay, so obviously his illustrations look a lot different than the TV show, especially when Arthur doesn't have his glasses on. He's got the circle and then the white eye and the dot instead of just the black dots on his skin. So that immediately looks a little bit odd. He almost looks like a horse. It kind of reminds me of the way that BoJack Horseman is drawn.
Yeah, he does look very horse-like. Yeah, they're very like sketchy. Like the lines aren't quite clear. You can kind of see the sketch marks as well, which I think is kind of nice actually.
Yeah, it's charming and kind of gives it more of like a homey feel. Arthur's Eyes is almost exactly like the first episode of Arthur. So if you haven't watched that, go listen to the first episode of Elwood City Limits. We covered it in great detail. So there's not really a whole lot of deviation, but there is a difference in kind of the character of Arthur. He's picked on way more in the children's book.
Yeah, by Buster.
Yeah, that was okay. So, Book Arthur is kind of a little bit more sad. He's a lot more of an outcast, whereas in the TV show, it was kind of mainly Francine who was antagonizing him, and maybe a couple more people. But Arthur still had friends and was a normal kid. In this one, Francine is teasing him, and Buster calls him a sissy for wearing glasses.
I was wondering while I was watching this, which you guys might have covered in the first episode, but is that even like a thing anymore to make fun of somebody for having glasses? Like, I feel like getting glasses is just something like you don't make fun of somebody for going to the dentist, do you? So do people actually do this?
I feel like it's probably. I mean, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't necessarily doubt it just because I know that kids who. Kids can be cruel sometimes and could pick up on anything. I want to say no. I hope not, because when I was a kid, I really wanted glasses. Like, I thought people who wore glasses were the coolest, and I was sad that I didn't get to wear them. And now that I'm much older, I'm glad that I don't have to, because wearing glasses is very expensive, I'm to understand.
Yeah, I do wear glasses, and yeah, it can get quite pricey, which is why Arthur should not be trying to put his glasses into the washing machine, but we'll get there.
Ugh. Man, oh man, that's right. Okay, so that's a bit different than, Arthur tries to weasel out of wearing his glasses. By the way, it seems that the Reed family has a cat instead of a dog.
I saw that. Yeah, there's like a cat on the couch behind them at one point.
So Arthur's ill-realized cat, I guess that didn't make the storyboard meetings of the Arthur TV show, and we get to see just a little bit of DW, but she doesn't say anything. Yeah, he tries to hide it in his lunchbox and the laundry. I imagine if you got your glasses in the laundry, that would be big trouble.
His mom would be so pissed. Those
Yeah.
glasses probably cost her a lot of money.
That's absolutely true. And this is 1978 money, so it may not sound like a lot, but it probably was. Another big difference here is that, so there's a point when Arthur is kind of talking to his teacher. In the original episode, it's, Arthur sees Wilbur Rabbit, who plays Bionic Bunny, who wears glasses. That kind of emboldens him. But it's his teacher who kind of helps turn him around. And his teacher is not Mr. Ratburn, but instead is a moose. So I'm going to take some creative liberties here, and I'm going to say that he is played by this. His teacher is Mr. Elkin, who is referred to as a substitute teacher in the first season. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is Mr. Elkin.
Okay, yeah, I can go with that. Oh, something I thought was interesting was that in the episode Arthur's Eyes, he's emboldened by seeing Bionic Bunny wear glasses instead of his teacher, and I was thinking, oh, maybe Bionic Bunny doesn't exist in the book yet, but his lunchbox says Bionic Bunny, so he does exist. It's just they went with a different story take, I guess.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it was the kind of thing of since Arthur is a TV show, then maybe he gets, a little bit of emboldening from TV, but who's to say? Good catch, though. I totally missed that. And, of course, it does end up that Arthur becomes more confident about his glasses, and Francine tries to be just like him with her movie star glasses. Although the original episode kind of ends with her bringing in the movie star glasses, this one goes a little further. She brings them everywhere.
Yeah, and she interrupts the school photos so she can go get them. It's like, Francine, get your act together. You should have brought them up with you already.
Yeah, she's really trying. And Arthur kind of gets to style on Francine a little bit here. At the end of the book, it's like Arthur is able to read all the questions, but Francine missed 2 of them, and is just like, all right, he really ends up getting her back.
Yeah, he sort of starts coming for Francine once he feels a bit more confident about his glasses. At one point, she asks him to be on her basketball team, and he says, I'll consider it.
Yeah, he really big times her. Okay, so I mean that's essentially kind of it. If you've never read the book or seen the episode, that it kind of ends there of Francine with the movie star glasses. Yeah, I guess it's kind of come to a weird end of the episode here, because we've talked about Reading Rainbow itself, and we've talked about kind of Arthur's Eyes, the book, and how it kind of approached it. Normally, at the end of an episode, we talk about kind of, what we thought of it. Was it good, bad, in the middle? I'm not so sure that that kind of serves here. Anna, did you have any lingering thoughts about the Arthur part of this episode before we move on?
I will say the whole time I was listening to it being read, I was thinking, this person has a very strangely unique accent, and it sounds so familiar to me, and I don't know why. And then at the end credits, it was revealed to me the book was narrated by Bill Cosby.
Yeah. I mean, it's unavoidable, because if you've heard Bill Cosby speak, people of your age and mine, we know what Bill Cosby sounds like, but it's just one of those weird things of ew, Bill Cosby, ew. Okay, so, we've talked about Reading Rainbow as a show. I want to give you a little bit of a creative challenge here, Anna, and pardon me for putting you on the spot. But, so, LeVar Burton, in the past couple of years, has talked about, getting a Kickstarter together to create a new Reading Rainbow. And Reading Rainbow was around for a long time, even into the 2000s. How would you create a new Reading Rainbow in 2017?
Yeah, that's a really tough one.
I know. Sorry to put it all on your plate.
I would think that it would have to be interactive or more interactive than it was, because we have so much more opportunities for like interactive technology now. You know, back in 1983 when this episode was filmed, all you could really do was just watch it on the TV. You couldn't like go hit the screen and expect anything to happen. But these days, you know, kids usually, they don't even watch TV anymore. They watch everything on iPads or phones or whatever. And so I think it would be kind of neat if they had like little segments where, you know, oh, like look, you know, touch the thing and you can look at the pictures, or touch the thing, see something about the author, or, you know, draw your own thing here. Like at the beginning of this episode, LeVar Burton is talking about how different pictures can look like different things to different people. And, you know, if it was like a 2017 version, you could draw your own. Like, what do you think this should be? Something like that, maybe.
So an element of interactivity.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is the way to go. One more question for you. Do you think there should be a Reading Rainbow in 2017 and beyond? Do you think that's something that we need these days with, you know, all of the educational content that kids have access to, and the fact that, you know, now there is a lot of access to literacy? I mean, libraries are still going and whatnot. Anyway, do you think there should be a new Reading Rainbow in the current year?
You know, I'm always going to be for Reading Rainbow. And I think, honestly, one of the biggest benefits to Reading Rainbow isn't necessarily showing kids books and being like, hey, look, this is a book. You can go to the library and get one. The cool thing about Reading Rainbow is that they would actually read the whole book to you. And, you know, if you were a kid, say, you know, like me, who only had PBS, and maybe, you know, you happen to come from a family who doesn't read to you much, you have this at least. You can, you know, literally have the TV read to you.
That's a good way of thinking about it. There's a layer of accessibility for kids who have trouble reading in one way or another. I never thought about it that way, but that's a very good point. And I guess all I'll say is, you know, I can't say that I have anything terribly profound to say about Reading Rainbow. If you watch this episode and you're not particularly inspired, I mean, you could try a later episode to be sure, but this one, you know, Arthur is something that you can still enjoy as an adult. Reading Rainbow is really designed for kids. You may get like a nostalgic kick out of it if you grew up with it like Anna and I did, and it's certainly neat to see, you know, this is probably the easiest way that you can see one of Arthur's earliest written adventures, but other than that, it may not hold a lot of water for you, especially if you're a bit younger. But all the same, it's still fun to look back at. And I will say, big props to LeVar Burton. I think he's a terrific host. I think he's very engaging and very interesting and dynamic. And I think he was the perfect choice. And it's very obvious why Reading Rainbow almost was on the air for, if not, then almost 20 years.
Absolutely. I would say if you just want to see like a little time capsule of what it was like in 1983, that's a really good way to see it, especially for time capsule for like what it was like to be a kid then watching TV. You got the really strange like synth transitions, you got the weirdly lit things. Like, you were also getting the same sort of things in Sesame Street at that time, I think, the sort of like split screen type deals with the weird synth music in between. So definitely, like, if you want to see it as like a time capsule, it's worth watching. But yeah, if you haven't grown up with it, you might find it kind of boring.
And as always, kids, ask your older siblings or your parents about Reading Rainbow. Okay, so Anna, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you very much for helping me take a look at this, a little bit of Arthur ephemera. Now, you have a presence on the web with Let's Talk Cartoons. Where else can people find you, including the URL for that site?
So the URL for that site is just let's-talk-cartoons.tumblr.com. But if you just go to Tumblr and put in the search bar Let's Talk Cartoons, you'll find it. It's just basically recaps of different animated cartoon episodes, but I do anything as long as it's animated. You can also find me on Twitter at LionessGoddess, or I also have a website, it's just www.annamansager.wordpress.com.
All right, well, great stuff, and definitely check her reviews out. I've been having a good time reading them myself. Thanks everybody for joining us for this special episode of Elwood City Limits. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Tumblr, and hopefully see you very soon for another new episode of Arthur Itself. And of course, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or in the Google Play Store, please leave us a rating and review. You can email us, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com, and see the full back catalog, elwoodcitylimits.libsyn, that's LIBSYN.com. Anna, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Butterfly in the sky, you can go twice as high.
Take a look, everybody. It's in a book. Read a book and have some fun, reading Rainbow or otherwise. Thanks, Anna, and we'll see you next time.